If you ignore this, you will miss the greatest quantum leap of your life. Not because this video holds some secret locked away from the rest of the world. Not because missing it will punish you. Not because anything outside of you has the power to determine what you become. But something inside of you, something quiet, something patient, something that has been waiting longer than you may realize, may go another season without being recognized. And that is the only loss worth naming here. You did not arrive at this moment by accident. Something moved in you before your mind had time to explain it. A title, a feeling, a flicker of recognition you almost scrolled past. That flicker is not nothing. There are two kinds of people who arrive at a message like this. There are those who feel a faint discomfort, something unfamiliar pressing against the edges of what they already believe, and they leave. They return to the familiar. They choose the known door. And there are those who stay, who breathe, who lean into the discomfort just long enough to let it become clarity. This message is for the ones who stay. Before this is over, you will encounter 3 thresholds. The first is about what you have been calling reality. The second is about the version of yourself standing in front of it. And the third, the one most people never quite reach, is about the leap itself. Stay with this. The leap begins when you notice. I'm Daniel, and this is Gnostic Talk. And I want to begin with something that took me years to fully sit with. Not a concept I read once and immediately understood. Something I circled around, walked away from, returned to, until one morning it stopped being an idea and became something I could feel. The leap begins when you notice. Notice what exactly? Notice that the reality you have been moving through, the one that feels fixed, given, simply the way things are, is not as solid as it appears. I spent 3 months researching the intersection of quantum theory, consciousness studies, and ancient contemplative traditions. And what I found did not fit neatly into any one category. It was not purely science. It was not purely spiritual. It lived in the space between, in the territory most people never enter because it requires them to hold 2 things at once. Here is the first thing contemplative traditions and certain corners of quantum thinking seem to agree on, each in their own language. The observer is never separate from what is observed. Some traditions call this the collapse of the wave. Some call it the participatory universe. Some call it the eye of God looking through the eye of man. Different vocabularies, the same unsettling implication. You are not a passive witness to a pre-existing reality. You are, in some sense that science cannot fully map and philosophy cannot fully contain, a participant in what reality becomes. Now, and this is important, this does not mean that you can think your way out of genuine hardship. It does not mean suffering is your fault. It does not mean reality is a dream you can simply rewrite with positive thinking. That would be simplistic, and it would not honor the full weight of human experience. Before we continue, there's something I want to place in your hands. We've gathered the forgotten texts, the ones the Church sealed away for 17 centuries, into a single guide for those who feel the pull towards something deeper. Because whether we speak of the archons, the demiurge, or the divine spark, one truth remains. This knowledge was never meant to be lost. This is for anyone who senses there's more to this reality than we've been told, and who's ready to remember it. You'll find it in the link in the description below, or you can scan the QR code right here. I'll give you a moment to do that. What it means is something more precise and more useful. It means that the lens through which you observe your life is not neutral. It is active. It is shaping. Have you ever entered a room already braced for conflict and found it? Have you ever looked at a new beginning with the eyes of an old disappointment and watched it slowly confirm your fear? Have you ever received something good and immediately felt your body searching for what was wrong with it? That is not the world speaking. That is the lens. Now imagine, just as a possibility, a doorway, not a command, that the lens could be adjusted, not erased, not replaced with blind optimism, adjusted, refined, cleaned. What if the quantum leap you have been waiting for is not a leap outward, into better circumstances, but a leap inward, into a cleaner, truer way of observing? Some perspectives in quantum physics suggest that the act of observation itself changes the behavior of particles at the subatomic level. And while we must be careful not to turn science into metaphor too quickly, the symbolic weight of this idea is extraordinary. What you observe, you participate in creating. What you repeatedly observe, you reinforce. What you observe with fear, you approach with the body already closed. What you observe with even the faintest openness, just the willingness to look without conclusion, begins to behave differently in front of you. This is not magic. This is not fantasy. This is the mechanics of attention. And attention is not a passive thing. Take a slow breath now. Let your shoulders drop. Feel the weight of your body exactly where it is. Notice the screen. Notice the sound. Notice the room around you. You are observing right now. And how you are doing it, whether with tightness or softness, whether with judgment or curiosity, is already participating in what this moment becomes. The leap begins when you notice, and you are already noticing. There is a question that most people never ask directly. They feel it. They carry it in the background of busy days and restless nights, but they rarely bring it forward into the light where it can be examined. The question is this: who is doing the observing? Because here is what I began to understand, slowly, uncomfortably, in the way real understanding tends to arrive, after years of sitting with these traditions and these questions. The observer has a history. The version of you that wakes up each morning and looks out at the field of possibility you are standing in, that version is not the raw, original you. It is a version that has been shaped, trained, narrowed by experiences it had no choice but to absorb. Maybe you were told early that wanting too much was dangerous. Maybe you watched someone you loved reach for something large and get hurt. Maybe the message was never spoken aloud. It was simply in the air of the environment you grew up in, quiet and pervasive as humidity. And so the observer learned to observe carefully, safely, small. Not because you were weak, but because you were wise enough to survive the conditions you were given. Thank the part of you that protected you. It did its job. But now, gently, without violence toward yourself, ask, does that same protective lens still need to govern every new moment? Does the strategy that helped you survive a past chapter need to write the one you are standing in now? Have you ever wanted something new while looking at it through the eyes of an old wound? Have you ever stood at the edge of a genuine opportunity and felt the body hesitate, not because the opportunity was wrong, but because the observer inside you was still carrying the architecture of a much older room? Pattern becomes identity. Identity becomes the life you keep rehearsing. This is what different wisdom traditions mean when they speak of the need for inner renewal. When modern psychology speaks of schema and self-concept, when contemplative schools speak of the false self and the witness, they are pointing, each in their own dialect, at the same underlying condition. The observer you have become may not be the observer you were born to be. I personally think this is the most overlooked dimension of the entire conversation around transformation and quantum leaps. Not the techniques, not the practices, not even the philosophy, but the quiet, daily, almost invisible way the identity of the observer shapes what gets seen, what gets dismissed, and what gets treated as impossible before it ever has a chance to become real. The self that says, I am not ready, I am not enough, this is not for someone like me. That self is not speaking the truth. It is speaking its history. And history, as real as it is not prophecy. Here is the practice. Not a technique, not a system, just a simple act of noticing. The next time you look at a possibility and feel the body close, pause. Don't force it open, don't argue with the feeling. Just notice it. Name it. Say quietly and without judgment, there is the old lens. That's it. That small recognition, that micro moment of awareness, is the beginning of something that traditions call integration. The moment the observer begins to observe itself. This is the second threshold. Not the world changing, not circumstances rearranging, but the version of you standing in front of reality, beginning to recognize that it is a version, not a fixed, final, permanent identity, but a current expression of something much larger. That recognition is not small. It is, in many ways, the door. The leap begins when you notice, and you are already beginning to see the shape of the door. Now we arrive at the place most people miss. Not because they lack intelligence, not because they are not spiritually sincere, not because the information wasn't available to them, but because the quantum leap, the real one, the kind that changes the architecture of a life rather than just the surface of it, does not feel the way most people expect it to feel. They expect it to arrive like an explosion, a sudden revelation, a dramatic before and after. And sometimes, rarely, it does. But most of the time, the greatest leaps in a human life arrive quietly. They arrive in a moment that, while it is happening, does not announce itself as significant. Before we continue, some of what I've learned simply never makes it onto YouTube. That's why I started the Gnostic Newsletter, a free newsletter where I go deeper into esoteric Gnostic teachings, hidden wisdom, and the mysteries we don't share in these videos. And when you sign up, you'll receive a Gnostic guide to mastering reality as a welcome gift, completely free. You'll find it through the link in the description below or by scanning the QR code on your screen. I'll give you a moment to do that. I remember sitting in a small library, this was several years ago, surrounded by texts from traditions that don't usually share shelf space, and reading about a concept from ancient Gnostic thought. The idea that awakening is not the acquisition of something new, but the remembrance of something already present, already true, already whole. And something in me stopped. Not dramatically, not with light or sound, just stopped. The way water stills when the wind stops moving across it. I had been looking for the leap as if it were a destination, a place I had not yet reached, a version of myself I had not yet earned. And in that moment, in that quiet library, the possibility arrived that the leap was not in front of me. It was beneath me, already holding me, waiting to be recognized rather than achieved. That is the mechanics of the real quantum leap. Not striving, not forcing, not manufacturing a version of yourself that deserves the life you want. Recognition. And the traditions that have mapped this territory most carefully, the Gnostic schools, the contemplative lineages, the mystical branches of every major tradition, they all point to the same fundamental insight. The leap is available right now, in this moment. Not after you are more healed, more ready, more deserving. Now. But, and this is the part that requires honesty, recognition is not passive. It is not simply deciding to believe something. It is a practice, a discipline, a return again and again to the awareness underneath the noise. Have you ever noticed that in your most clear moments, the moments between plans, between worries, between the endless negotiation with the future, there is something underneath, something quiet, something that does not feel like it is trying to be anything. That something is not distant from the leap you are looking for. That something may be the leaping ground itself. Now here is where the quantum framing becomes most useful. Not as literal physics, again, we hold that carefully, but as a map of possibility. In quantum systems, particles exist in multiple potential states simultaneously. A state of pure possibility. It is the act of measurement, of observation, that collapses that wave of potential into a single, specific outcome. And here's the question worth sitting with today. What if the same dynamic is available to human consciousness? What if right now, beneath the version of your life that feels fixed and determined, there is a field of simultaneous possibility, a quantum field of potential paths, potential selves, potential futures, and what collapses it into one specific shape is not fate, not luck, not even hard work alone, but the quality and direction of your sustained observation. What you observe with consistency, you tend toward. What you tend toward with the full weight of your awareness and your intention, you begin to move into. This is not wishful thinking. This is the oldest practical teaching across the most enduring traditions on Earth, and it is being rediscovered, tentatively, carefully, at the edges of modern consciousness research. Write this in the comments, just these words: I am ready to notice the leap. Write it slowly, not as performance, as acknowledgement, as the moment you mark this threshold in your own record. Because the act of writing it is itself a small collapse of the wave, a small choosing, a small leap. And small leaps, repeated, honored, protected, are how the greatest shifts in a human life actually happen. Not in one dramatic moment, in the accumulation of recognized moments. The leap begins when you notice, and you have already crossed the first 3 thresholds. There is a 4th threshold. Most people never hear about it, not because it is hidden behind some ancient locked door, but because it is so close, so quietly present in the texture of ordinary moments that the searching mind tends to leap right over it. The 4th threshold is this: the moment you stop waiting for the leap to feel like a leap. Let that sit for a moment. Because somewhere along the way, in the books you read, the videos you watched, the conversations you had at midnight with yourself, you absorbed an image of transformation, a dramatic image, a before and after, a version of yourself that wakes up one morning and simply knows that everything has changed. And that image, as beautiful as it is, may have been quietly working against you, not as your enemy, as a placeholder, a symbol of something real that the mind translated into a story it could hold. And the story said, when the real thing comes, you will feel it unmistakably. You will know. There will be no confusion. But here is what the contemplative traditions, the ones that have tracked inner transformation across centuries, not quarters, have observed again and again. The greatest shifts rarely announce themselves. They arrive in the spaces between announcements. In the moment you respond to someone's criticism and notice, just notice, a half-second of spaciousness before the old defense rises. In the morning you wake up and the weight that used to greet you before your eyes fully opened is simply quieter. Not gone, quieter. In the conversation where you almost performed the familiar version of yourself and then, without fanfare, you chose a slightly different word, a slightly truer one. These are not small things dressed up as large ones. These are the large things. These are the quantum leap, not in the Hollywood sense, but in the actual sense. In physics, a quantum leap is the smallest possible jump an electron can make between energy states. It is not dramatic. It is the minimum unit of change at the level where reality is actually structured. And personally, I spent the better part of 2 years waiting for my own transformation to arrive with more noise. I was watching for the unmistakable. I was ready for the undeniable. And what I kept missing, what I kept walking past on the way to somewhere larger, were the precise moments where the real shift was happening, quietly, incrementally, in the texture of Tuesday. I'm Daniel, and this is Gnostic Talk. And what I want to offer you here, not as doctrine, not as a system, but just as a possibility, is this. The leap you have been waiting for may already be in motion. The observation you made at the first threshold, the noticing of how you notice, may already be reshaping the field of your experience in ways too subtle for the comparing mind to register. The coherence you touched at the second threshold, the identity question you sat with at the third, these are not preparatory steps for something that has not started yet. They are the start. Have you ever planted something and then kept digging it up to check whether it was growing? Have you ever tried to watch your own eyes move in a mirror? Have you ever measured a tide by standing in one place and looking down every 10 seconds? Some processes require that you remove the measuring and simply continue. This is, I personally think, the most underrated threshold in all of inner work. Not the beginning, not the peak experience, not the arrival, but the middle passage. The period where the old life has loosened, but the new one has not yet declared itself. Where you are neither who you were, nor fully who you are becoming. where the observer in you must simply trust the direction without demanding the destination. The mind will resist this. Of course it will. Thank it. It is doing what it was shaped to do, seeking certainty, seeking landmarks, seeking proof that the effort is worth the cost. Thank it for that, and then gently, without struggle, return your attention to the practice. Not the dramatic practice, the daily one. The breath you take before reacting, the pause before the familiar complaint, the moment you choose curiosity over conclusion, the small, unsexy, undramatic, accumulating acts of someone who has decided, not once but repeatedly, not perfectly but persistently, to notice the leap rather than wait for it. Take a slow breath now. Let your shoulders soften. Feel the space behind your eyes. Feel the room around you, the sound of this voice, the subtle aliveness in your hands. And notice, just notice, that you are still here, that you stayed, that something in you recognized through all 4 thresholds that this message was not about information, it was about remembrance. You were not taught something new today. You were reminded of something your experience has been pointing toward for longer than you might want to admit. The leap begins when you notice. And you, in choosing to stay, to breathe, to sit with the discomfort of the middle passage rather than scroll past it, you have already begun. Not as metaphor, not as encouragement, as fact. Share this with someone who is standing in their own middle passage right now. Someone who is doing the work and wondering why the evidence is so quiet. Someone who needs to hear that quiet evidence is still evidence, that the absence of drama is not the absence of progress. The greatest quantum leap of your life may not look like a leap at all. It may look like this: a moment, a noticing, a breath taken differently than the 10,000 breaths before it, and then another, and then another. The leap begins when you notice, and you have already begun.